never offered twice. This is it. I've been waiting for it, dreaming of it all my life, even when I was a kid.
Ain't it perfect? at the gated 5-star hotel. I can travel as much as I want. You have to be here 6 months out of the year. Get to be here 6 months out of the year. Taxes are through the roof. It's dangerous. And so if you look at it logically, I get to live in literal paradise at the gated 5-star hotel. I can travel as much as I want. You have to be here 6 months out of the year. Get to be here 6 months out of the year. Like I think there's nowhere I'd rather be too. Like that's the other misconception. A couple people, like I think Hormozy ripped on that at one point. You know, like the point of making money is live where you want to live. Or this is like literal paradise, and you're unbothered, and you can focus on your work. Like and on top of that, you pay no tax.
Yeah, it's funny he says that, but he lives in Vegas.
Lives in Vegas, and then to further break down that video, he goes on about, well, if I'm gonna make $1 billion, like he breaks down this math, and then totally removes basic compounding from the equation. You think about it, if you make $1 million a year, and you just start running that compounding math on 400,000 gone versus 400,000 compounding, it becomes insane over the course of 10 years. Like it's very hard to get rich paying ordinary income tax. Not a lot of people really understand that. Like
yeah, you would essentially have to make $1 million a year, spend $1 million to grow the business, and grow year over year over year, and then sell. And what is it, 8% capital gain?
20% capital gains.
20% if you exit the company.
That's where real wealth is built. But ordinary income, like I said, you think about the Miami course seller, like $1 million is 600. And you have to do that for a long period of time. And those guys, like the lifestyle is insane, right? So they're not stacking money like that. Most people who have gotten wealthy, it's been because like I grew up in Seattle, tons of multi-millionaires, like crazy wealth, early Amazon employees, got Amazon stock when it was, $50, right? And just rode it for 10 years and sold it and, 10 million, right? Like they pay tax on that, but it's like equity, right? It's just a whole different world. It's very hard to get rich paying ordinary income. Bezos too made that a point for 20 some years. He made sure Amazon at the end of the year, every single year, was either break even or unprofitable. And the way you do that was they'd have profitable divisions, printing cash. He'd take that cash and he'd invest it in new ventures that would lose money, bets in the future. But he had no interest in letting the IRS hold that money. He'd rather put it towards future entrepreneurial endeavors.
So how much money should you be making to move to Puerto Rico?
It depends on, again, are you building a company or is it ordinary income? If you're like service-based, I mean, really anything over 500,000, I think it starts to really.
How does yours work? Or is it distributions plus equity?
Or there's both. So the businesses I own, like some of the brands and stuff, those are U.S. companies. They're C corps. The stock, when I sell that, I will pay no tax on. But the income from those is taxed as a corporate U.S. entity. So those pay corporate U.S. tax, small amount. But again, I try to run those businesses in growth mode. Like I want to be I don't want to make money until it's a $50 million business. Some still do on accident. Like sometimes you're just profitable. And then like other things I've going, like even, $1 Million Brand Club, like that's a business for me. That's you're just profitable. But and then like other things I have going, like even $1 million brand club, like that's a business for me. That's 4%, no tax on it. So you run the podcast, right? It's like all your everything podcast related, you would be 4% versus, the where are you a resident? California? Ooh. It just takes 1 year of like making a lot of money where you go, it's great here, but I don't know if it's that great. Yeah. California is amazing.
Once you write a huge check to the IRS, you start rethinking.
It changes everything.
How good the weather is.
For real. It's great here.
Yeah. So do you stay here? What are the requirements to pay Puerto Rico taxes?
You have to live here. It has to be your primary like home. So you need like closer ties. Like I have a family. My kids can't go to school in Texas. And then top of that, 183 days is the math. You need to be here, over half the year. But they actually let you take, as long as you're not in the U.S., you can get a month out of the country. Like you can go to Europe for a month. That counts as your time here. So it's not crazy. You just.
So it's really 150 days.
Yeah.
Would you say you spend 183 days in Puerto Rico? Like, or do you spend more than that?
What are you, the IRS? No, I'm kidding.
I know I am like, that's a thought question.
I spend more. Like my girls go to the private school here. They love it. Like I spend probably, this year, probably like 8 or 9 months. I travel a lot for work and all that stuff, but I like genuinely love it here. My routine here is unmatched. Like, I train, eat, work, repeat. Like it's pretty dialed. I go to Miami for some chaos, I couldn't imagine like trying to build and grow there.
Yeah. It's crazy that if you make $1 million a year, like a place like this is basically free if you live in Puerto Rico. Oh. Rob, what would you say, what's been the hardest year of your life?
I'd say honestly, like the last year has been really hard. I don't know if you know it looking on social media, but those businesses going down was like one of the bigger hits in my life. Dealing with like personal stuff with my wife and just all sorts of stuff there, and then like 2 months ago my mom got diagnosed with breast cancer, and it's actually been I'm grateful for the experience, if that makes sense, because I felt like before these things, like I knew who I was and I was confident in who I was, and right now I'm reminded that again. Like, okay, cool, like life just hit me and great opportunity to stand up, to get tougher, to be better. And so I don't really look at it in terms of, I think I answered that question like appropriately when you say tough, but it's been like I'm viewing it truly as like as a blessing and an opportunity and a reminder and a recentering. But you know what I mean? Like it's like I am a real person. Like I think on Instagram we fall into these traps that like it's always good and it's always up, and I mean it's always up here. And then like the mind that made the money is always there for sure, but it's not always good. Like I'm dealt serious cards all the time, and that is the beauty of life.
So how much money have you lost in this past year?
Those businesses going down, assuming it remains unresolved, is probably like 20 million net worth, maybe 25. Again, we haven't sold them, right? So like they're all new and it's still like relatively speculative, but I would probably say 20 to 25 million in net worth. Like when we sold those, that's how I think about things. I don't think about like, it was making me, it was making like between maybe $1 million, $1.5 million, but like the enterprise value, these companies growing, like maybe Evil Goods was going to be a multiple 9-figure thing, right? Like you never know, but like right at the point of them getting clipped, it's probably like 20 to 25 million net worth. And I'm fine.
And then with your wife, what was the issues with the relationship there?
Like I mentioned earlier, I neglected any focus on relationships and all that stuff for like a decade, like prior to these last couple of years. And what you realize is people grow apart if you don't work at them. And we're just at an interesting crossroads where I just want like a lot of these other things in my life. I want to, you know what I mean? And I just don't know if that's the right partner, but it's still kind of all up in the air. Like I said earlier, it comes back to, I think like both of us just focusing on self-love, like learning to become the version of ourselves and then kind of seeing from there. But it's been challenging as well. I've been with her since I was 19.
Are you guys still together?
Mm-hmm. We're legally separated.
And so that's, how many years is that?
Of being together?
Yeah.
13 years.
So 13 years, and then you just got separated. Was there a certain like catalyst that you're like mutually decided this needs to end, I guess?
How much do you know about my life? Like I had like the last 2 years I've been like, I don't know, hall passes, I'm allowed to like date or whatever the last 2 years. And I kind of came to this realization 6 months ago. No, but we're in like April now. So like middle of last year, I was like, I don't really like this. Like I said, like, oh, maybe I have a woman problem, or maybe there's like I'm not finding goal, like my goals are being interfered with by potential lust and shit like that, right? And I was like, I think there's a world where like monogamy and hyper focus on family works really well, and these are the requirements of it, and this is what it'll look like. And then right kind of towards the end of that, I was like, wait, maybe she's not the match for that. And then I ended up in this other relationship, like long story short, from it was like this girl that I was like crazy about in college. Like she came full circle back, and we developed this relationship, and it just like it's like healthy for a bit. And then I realized like, oh man, so many things in my house are wrong. And that's just kind of where we're at today. Like I'm just very focused on like me, like becoming the version of me I need to. And my wife will always be good as long as I'm breathing. You know what I mean? Like it's no bad blood or whatever, but that's just kind of where I'm at 32, the era of self-discovery.
So how long were you doing the open relationship thing?
Like 2 years.
With that relationship, if you were monogamous for 10 years, how come you didn't realize it in that time period? It took you to date other women to realize that.
I don't know. I couldn't tell you. There was a very stagnant, when I was building Genius, I was like, nothing existed outside of that. Like I was very hyper focused. And then those next couple years, it just like there were a lot of changes, and my life was very boring, and like I wasn't growing or progressing, and it just wasn't even like a conversation point. And both of us were just like I'll tell you, I don't like saying open relationship because it wasn't like she wasn't doing
one-sided open.
Well, yeah, but that was like, honestly, I feel like one of the best things for our relationship when it first happened. Like it genuinely made us closer. Like we had like become business partners, just living in the same house, not really liking each other. And then that kind of created this like new dynamic where I can tell you, like she genuinely was unbothered with me like sleeping with other girls, like actually like back and forth on that a lot. And that was like not one of the issues, like actually. And yeah, I don't know. It's just like life progresses in weird way. I'd never, you asked me when I was like 25, 26, I never in a million years would have thought I've lived the last couple of years I've lived, and I don't know. It's just like woken me up in a lot of ways. And I don't know, I'm just trying to share what I'm learning real time, because what I do know is the current system like doesn't work. Like divorce is super high, and then even the people that aren't divorced, like you look at them, it's like largely miserable. I'd say like 90% honestly. Like it just doesn't work. And whether it be Instagram, whatever it is, right? It's just not set up for optimal human experience. And so I think I'm just sorting through that and trying to figure it out and share the pieces I learned along the way.
Would you get married again?
I don't think it really makes sense to involve the government in anything you do, honestly.
Would you get married again? Like proposal, wedding, but no government.
Yeah, I think finding some form of commitment like isn't out of the question.
That's kind of the goal for you.
I don't know if it's the goal. Like I said, like I think you really, I just can't stress this enough. Like when you focus on like really like being you and like loving you and pouring into the version you're supposed to become, the right things, whether that be relationship, whether it be business opportunity, like that's like the whole law of attraction stuff. Like it's all nonsensey, but I think like that in its purest form is you focus on you, you love you, you become you, and you attract the things. The things show up. The relationship where you need it meets you at that point. And in the reality of like, okay, if you look at my marriage now, like who I'm trying to be and like the vibration I'm trying to be at, maybe it doesn't match hers, which is fine. Like there's nothing wrong with that. It's not like inherently bad, but I think that's a better way to look at relationships.
People grow.
People change.
Yeah.
And that's okay. We're supposed to, right? Like that's the point of life. And I look at like that previous, post-Genius decade, no one was growing. You saw old videos of me. Like, did I look like I was growing? It's like But you know what I mean? Like jokes aside, like that, it's an important part of life to progress, and you know, her goals might just be different than mine, and that's okay.
Has having kids made you more money?
No, I don't think so. I don't think it's like made me more money per se, but it's a beautiful part of life. Like it's a incredible part of life, and I love it, and it shapes your perspective and maybe amplifies some things. I don't know if I could say like it directly has made me more money, but it definitely matures you, and maybe, you know, just as a result, helps you make better decisions.
What do you think of the whole red pill philosophy around you don't have to be involved in your children's lives when they're younger?
I to the level of that, I don't know if I agree to the level of it, but I very much think it's like just naturally, biologically, women, the kids literally depend on them for survival, like biologically. And you just see it unfold. Like that's where my wife's optimal. Like really, I mean, with the girls, like, you know, like 200 years ago, tribes, I don't know, 300 years ago, don't quote me, but the women used to raise the kids, and the men had to do the survivalist things, like kill stuff and bring home food. And I think that's like true, like really. And I had to, like, one of my goals this year, I want to make the best dad possible. And I realized, and then I'd stress myself out when I'd be on the road for a week. I'm like, man, I'm not spending time with them. I'm missing this or missing that. And then I realized, like, no, that's what I need to be doing to actually provide the right life for them. Like, I know guys that like have money and quit and be full-time dads, and it's great for them, but it's just not, it's not for me. So I tend to like skew more towards that. That's okay. And that's acceptable.
What's the most expensive mistake you've ever made?
Some bad hires for sure. Like if we remove this last blunder with all the brand stuff, which I can't properly diagnose, like I hired a guy early last year to run Top Shelf, and he cost me like $2 million in a fucking month off just like brain dead, like horrible decision making. And that's really, like, I think entrepreneurship, you need to be able to hire to scale and like do it properly. So one of the things like Bezos is fantastic at, but it can be your greatest ally, or it can be like your biggest detractor. And I made a huge mistake hiring last year, and it cost me like serious money. Made me very upset.
What could you have done better in that situation?
Been more involved in the interview process. Like with I like trusted other people to kind of, you know, make that. And it was such an important role that I just should have been more, like, I never met him in person. Like there were just things that, given the magnitude of the role, and look, I got so much going on, right? I'm personal brand, other investment, like there was all sorts of justifications for kind of, oh, it'll probably be fine. And it just really wasn't. And that was a reminder on like asymmetric risk, like things that have potential to hurt you in a massive way. Make sure you're like buttoned up.
It seems to be a common theme of people when I ask about their regrets and mistakes is just, I didn't do enough quality assurance of this human, you know?
Yeah. Risk reduction, you know, it's often people that like can be the greatest additions or greatest subtractions.
What did cancer teach you about success that money couldn't?
Success it's like subjective and doesn't really matter. It's like, define what your success is. I think so many people get caught up in these horrible like monetary goals. Like I have to be a billionaire. I need to be a millionaire. And it's like, okay, you get that, then what? Then you get cancer tomorrow, and you spend your next 2 years doing chemo. Are you happy? Like were there other things you wanted to do? Like it really reframed, really like a lack of fucks for most things, like detaching from these weird goals and just really focusing on living a life that's successful in multiple avenues. You know what I mean? I know so many people with money that I just would never in a million years dream of trading lives with. I've done a couple of things on the billionaire circuit this year, like St. Bart's New Year's and, you know, Aspen for the whole winter thing. It's like, man, most of those people are like focused on the wrong things. And I do think cancer helps shape that, because it's just this reminder that it can all change tomorrow. Like we can be, you know, and like money or business success isn't the only indicator. It's like, what are your relationships like? What's your physical health like? Are you pursuing other interests? I went on that rant earlier about just looking at art and being inspired, you know? And I think it gave me a very healthy perspective on a broader life.
What was your experience with cancer?
So I dodged a bullet pretty good. I had, you know, are you familiar with melanoma? So like any young people, get your skin checked, but melanoma's like fine if they, I don't know, like talk about this shit. It's fine if they get it like early. And then because it starts growing on your skin, if you cut it off, it's fine. If it starts burrowing down, it's like a whole different ball game. And like kind of long story short, I guess I'm saying long story short so much. I end up telling these long stories anyway. But I go in for, this checkup. I have no idea what this stuff is either. I'm like I'm in good shape. I'm like super healthy. I eat organic, never in a million years am I thinking cancer, millionaire. And I go in and like my mom forces me to take her dermatology appointment. And I go in because I wasn't going to go. She saw this weird thing behind my ear. Going in, the guy goes, "That's coming off." And he, like that day, he cuts this thing off. I don't think anything of it. This is the first year I moved to Puerto Rico. I'm in Seattle for the summer visiting my family. Get on a plane, go to Texas, find out my wife's pregnant with our second kid. We buy a house in Texas. This all happens in a 2-day span. So pregnant, get an offer accepted on the house. We're hyped. Doctor calls me. I'm driving. He's like, "Are you sitting down?" I'm like, "No." I'm like, "I'm driving. What's up?" And he's like, "Okay, well, you need to go to the nearest, cancer hospital." And He goes, "Good news. We probably caught it early, but they need to do like a." He's telling me all this stuff, and I'm like, I don't really hear it. And I'm like, "Huh." And my wife and mom are in the car, and I look at him. I'm like, "I think we need to stay here a little bit longer. I need to, go to like the cancer hospital or something." And then what I do is that same autism I had on the Amazon algorithm, I start pouring into cancer research, like from that point for the next year, and I fuck myself up like bad. And I'll again explain the power of the mind, but to jump back really quick, we stay in Texas. I have to, find this. I have to go into like the actual cancer hospital, and then what they do is they do like a wider surgery, and then sometimes they'll check a lymph node because they don't know. They don't know how low it's gone. They know the size of it, and then they know all the indicators from there. And basically, anything over 0.8, they're probably going to take a lymph node, and there's at least a chance it's gotten in, like to your body, 0.8 to 1 millimeter, and then it starts getting over that, like you're probably looking at like it's stage 3, which is like it got into your body and you need to do immunotherapy. Sometimes people get it like way too late, and then it's once that one metastasizes, it's like probably a death sentence. Like it doesn't respond to radiation, and very low survival. But anyways, mine was 0.7, and so they were kind of debating taking the lymph node. They don't. They do this huge surgery, so they cut out like all the skin all around there. They sew you back up, and then they tell you go on your way. You're probably good. And so I spend all this time, like, I met with like one of the top cancer researchers, and just kind of, I never felt like I started freaking myself out. My wife, it got to the point too, like, I had like this neck issue too, and I always think the neck was like a lymph node. And so for like, that was honestly actually the hardest year of my life. Now that you mentioned that was the hardest year of my life. I was super isolated between Texas and Puerto Rico. I had no friends yet in Puerto Rico. Texas was a new place. We spent time there. I hardly talked to anyone. That was when me and my wife were kind of growing apart. She started focusing more on like, my daughters. And that whole pregnancy was just fucking horrible. I never, but like as a man, you just kind of keep going. And I look back, it was like, I'll wake up at 4 a.m. and go sit in my office and just turn the fireplace on and just like sit there. I couldn't sleep well. I had convinced myself that I wasn't going to see like my daughters grow up. I like went back to the ER like on 3 different occasions I thought like lymph nodes were swelling. And it wasn't until like, I don't know, it was this crazy process, which I can only attribute to God, where I finally, like, I was like told, I was like, good. I was like, oh shit, no, I'm like actually good. But that whole year, like it shows how like just as we can positively spiral into incredible things, we can negatively, do that. And I had gotten to the point I had a hard time looking at my daughter because I felt like I wasn't gonna see her grow up. I like really like convinced myself that, and it just like created this ongoing fucked up sickness and like sickness in my stomach, and it was just a really, really dark year. And I came through that. Like again, I was a guy that still hadn't spent most of my money. Like I'm just sitting on money. I go, wait, if I die tomorrow, like what? And so like I remember we took like a trip to Italy and spent like 70 grand. I was like, oh, I can afford to do that. And that was great. That was enriching. And it just kind of like cascaded into this, yo, I'm gonna put my foot on the gas and live life like in a really good way. I'm gonna go try to do all the things I wanted to do, and not be upset if tomorrow I had to end up in a hospital bed or whatever. You know what I mean? And so it was a very impactful moment in my life that I feel like, again, like God pulled me out of that one at the end of it, and it just has led to incredible things. But that was a dark period for sure.
Would you say that increased your faith in God? Did you ever lose faith in that whole experience?
No, I've never lost faith at any point. Ever. I think like we're here to experience this, and there's people, universe, God, this, that. It's a strong force out there that when you put your faith there, you're aligned with that energy, good things happen, even in dark times. Like I said, this last 6 months have been brutal, and I haven't flinched. Like I smile half the time. I don't feel bothered by it, and a lot of it has just been shaped over the years.
And that's because why?
Just because of the things I've been through and the constant reaffirmations from God. universe that things are always going to happen how they need to. And we're here to experience it.
It's crazy what you've been through, man. The past year and then that year, because I can only imagine how much you obsess over business and then you start to obsess over something like cancer.
All right, you know how mad I get when conspiracy theorist types are like, there's a cure for cancer, this won't sell. It's like, bitch, cancer is a fucking blanket term that defines all these different mutations. And it's just like, yeah, the more you know, you know? Could you imagine that though too? It's like, even those doctors and stuff, I think the medical system's fucked. I think how they treat cancer, I think it's all fucked. I do. But just going in to that facility, like the first time I went in there for the surgery, I'll never forget. There's a you know, probably 45-year-old mom, bald with her thing on, her fucking kid. And she's sitting in the waiting room with that you know, it's just like, damn. Like that is just like makes you physically sick. She's there with her kid, you know, and it's just like, she clearly gone through it. And that's a lot of people's reality. And so it makes like losing money or stuff, but it just really creates kind of an indifference for a lot of that stuff when you're reminded like I mean, it could be a lot worse, and hey, we are going to die one day. And you shouldn't really fear that either, but it's just like, it just adds a level of perspective that I think's missing out there.
At that moment, are those moments where you looked at your daughter's face and thought, I'm not going to be able to watch you grow up? What's one thing you wish you could say to yourself at that time?
Like, knowing, well, I don't know. So it's going to be fine, and like pick yourself up and go. But also I would remind myself that, you know, your influence is always going to be, it's like eternal with her, you know, like I've existed in her life and she'll know who her dad was, and that impact will reign strong, you know, like one day I am going to die and she is, you know, not going to have a dad. And it's like the same thing I'm going through with my parents. Like it's reality, but just making the most of what you do have and a reminder to be that person that would be the positive impact. And because that was the question, should dads be there, you know, in the kids' lives?
Yeah.
And a lot of times we just like, we simply can't. But being the person like that they can look up to, and like that symbol of healthy masculinity, that's where like a lot of the relationship stuff stems from. And just like being that, like how you treat women, how you treat your people around you, those are the things that are incredibly impactful that they'll remember, even if it's like limited time. The impact is like dramatic. So that's like where the red pill stuff drops off. No, you just don't have to be like, you know, you're not there for your kids. Okay, but what kind of man are you? Like when they look back and, you know, like,
what was your brand?
Yeah, for real.
If you could say one thing to yourself at 18, what would it be?
Stop giving a fuck. Stop giving a fuck. Like, I don't know. That's just my message. It's like, we really can do anything. And I had a lot of that in me at 18, but still, like, it just hasn't happened. I shouldn't say it hasn't happened fast enough, because it all happens how it needs to. But like for every 18-year-old out there, that is one thing I wish I fully appreciated earlier. And I wish I knew it. Like, you can't just not give a fuck. It's a constant game. You're having to constantly remind yourself, like when you feel an emotional reaction when someone judges you, like, you know, how do you process that? And I wish I could just tell my 18-year-old self that a little bit earlier, of like how to deal, you know, with those emotions and just remove those barriers. Like my upbringing and like my parents shaping, they mean phenomenally well, but it was not beneficial for who I want to be, if that makes sense. And I wish I was able to tune that out younger. But when I started posting content, so how old am I? That same Seattle trip, but I started getting some motion on TikTok. Like that's the first thing that kind of popped off for me, just like randomly. And I was like, I started going all in on making TikToks. And I went home that summer and my dad said something to me like, I hope you don't believe your own shit or something like that. And then like I stopped posting. Like eventually I stopped posting. Like I just cost myself a year of the golden years of TikTok, you know? And it's like, yeah, I wish I didn't make those mistakes. But it's normal. Like we want our parents to think a certain way of us and all that. And it's like, you know, I hope younger me doesn't make that mistake. I hope younger you doesn't make that mistake. Like, just stop giving a fuck.
What's one thing you wish your dad taught you?
I mean, I can be like nitpicky. I'm I'm grateful for what my parents tried to do and have done. Like if I got like nitpicky, it's like, oh, I wish I don't know, he never really talked money with me. And even though he was like a guy that always like super blue collar, no college education, but was like a hustler, like he bought a building, way back and held on to it. He never talked to me or taught me that type of stuff. I kind of had to learn all that myself. And then it became like in my perspective, evolved past his. And I'm very confident mine is the appropriate view. And now it's like, oh, I don't know shit. And I don't think he knows shit. And it's like this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been skipping this question lately because the answers are really bad. But I think you will have a good one for this. Who's the most impressive person you've ever met?
That's a good question. It's a really good question. Most impressive person I've ever met. To be honest, I'm not impressed by most people. The more you get to know people, the more you see them as people. It's like the idea of people is so much more impressive. Like when I met Peter Thiel, you have this 9 billion government right-wing puppet master. Not that impressive in person. Like just not that impressive in person, like just not. And so I think this idea of like putting people on pedestals like they're different than us is just a recipe for disaster. There's people I admire a lot of traits about, like my friend with the intense health routine. That's an operator who's proven time and time again he's a beast at stuff, right? And so like that impresses me. Like it is impressive, but at the end of the day too, he's human. Like I wouldn't trade lives with him, and like I don't know. I think it's wrong to I don't know. Is that you can have like admiration for people for sure. There's a lot of people, but I've never been like, oh, this is the second coming of Jesus. And I see a lot of people do that. Like one of my buddies is just obsessed with this tech founder. He's like building robots and doing he's the next Elon Musk and all that. And it's like, I guarantee the more you get to know him, the less impressed you'd be. Yeah. Like, I don't know. So that's just where I'm at.
Yeah, I think you're finally the first person that's answered that appropriately.
Because you're pretty impressive too. I like this shit. You're young. You're doing your thing.
I appreciate that, Rob. But yeah, I've asked that to Tate, PBD, Luke Belmore.
What Tate say?
Tristan. Or no, his father. His father. PBD said his father. Luke didn't have an answer. And I think most of the time people say their dad, their mom, their spouse, or they don't have an answer. And it's usually because the most impressive person to you is the person who's most impressive at the thing you're best at. And usually the people who are most successful believe they're the best at the thing they're best at.
You gotta keep pursuing your thoughts and shit. You put that super well. That was like a good, yeah.
I appreciate that. Last question here. What's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
I've been asked that before. I don't know, man. Well, one thing one bit I heard like recently that I really liked, and I think this is like good life framework. You should be pretty fucking disconnected from the past. Like don't dwell on it. Like don't really think about what was. You should be super realistic about where you're at today, and then you should be super delusional about the future. Like you met the person who's like, oh, I want to be a billionaire, but he's like on his mom's couch, not taking like refusing to admit he's on his mom's couch, right? And then you've met the person too who's like, I don't know, or stuck in the past. Like how many people do you know just like, oh, I can't be successful because this, or oh, that, a ton. And so I think that framework, it was My First Million guy, Sean, brought it up. He's like, this is shower thoughts, but you should be totally distantly connected from the past. Like you can revisit it from time to time, but even like you think about podcasts, it's like what Rogan did isn't not that relevant, right? Like it already happened. You should be realistic about where you're at today. Okay, this is where my channel's at. It's growing, whatever. And then, okay, in the future, I'm going to be the biggest fucking podcast in the world, and I'm going to be a source of influence, and everything's going to run through me. But you're still realistic about where you're at right now, and you think about the steps to get there tomorrow. So I really like that. I don't know if we call it advice, but like that framework.
I think that's a really good one. And I really liked when Sean said that as well. Was that on the podcast I did with you? Yeah. Well, guys, check out Rob's podcast with My First Million as well. That was a really good one. But yeah, is there anything that we haven't covered that you think would be particularly useful to people?
No, I just want people to keep sending it, you know? Like that's another thing I get. Sometimes people will, thank you for this or thank you for that. Like don't thank me. Like thank me by running it up yourself. Thank me by living your best life, being who you're supposed to be. And so I'll leave people with that.
Well, everyone, this has been the Jack Neal Podcast. This is your guest, Rob Oliver, Rob the Bank.
Thank you for having me.
See you guys. You just want to find people who are absolutely unreal. And the litmus test that I have is that you feel this like desperation in your core when you talk to them. You're like, I have to have this person. It's not like, oh, I have this role. I guess this is the least bad of the 10 people I've talked to. I would encourage you, if you're ever in that situation, this is the least bad, just don't. Just keep looking. Very tactical, right? Yes, you got tactical questions. Okay, good. That was the hope and the goal of how we structure it. And what's interesting is that the point that I think is most valuable, because you guys are going to go home and you'll leave here and you'll probably open up a blank document or turn a blank page in your notes or whatever you do to take notes, and you'll have your pages and pages of stuff that you got from here. But the other blank document is going to be, what am I actually going to do? And I just want to make sure that that page has the right 3 things on it. Because fundamentally, you're not going to be able to do all the things that you learn here, as much as you might want to, right? And so fundamentally, the strategy of a business owner is prioritization, right? That's what it means. And so we have to take limited resources, which is time, money, energy, the team that you have, against unlimited opportunities or things that you could deploy it towards. And the people who move fastest in their businesses aren't the ones who necessarily do the most, they're the ones who get the most for the effort they do. And I think that process of thinking has helped us move faster. And what's interesting about that is there's so much leverage on knowledge. Like there's so much leverage on knowledge. Like if you could go back in time and help your young self out, how much faster could you get? Like it's almost laughable. And the thing is that you probably felt like you worked hard then, and you probably feel like you work hard now. And there's a version of you that knows 5 years from now how much better you could be doing. And that's the value of knowing the right next move. So with that being said, I have the distinct pleasure of answering questions a lot. And even within the portfolio, there's basically 7 key problems that emerge consistently across businesses. And these are strategic problems. And the reason I think they're so nefarious, or they keep people stuck for sometimes ever, is that they are apparent conflicts, meaning they are rock and a hard place scenarios where both paths seem painful. And so then people just stay stuck because they don't know which one to choose. And so I have developed this little moniker for this as my way of remembering it. And I'll explain each of them briefly. And then as we come up, I'll be like, which one is it? So the first is serving too many avatars or being unclear on the person that you're selling to. So it's very common for in the early part of your career, you accept, you have person gets on the phone, they have credit card and Pulse. Well, at least one of those things is required to complete the sale. And you say, sure, you have money and I will take it in exchange for whatever you want. At some point, though, you realize that isn't really a tenable way to run the business. And so the problem is, the rock and hard place scenario is, well, I can stop saying yes to these people, but then that would mean that my short-term sales would go down. But if I don't stop saying yes to these people, I will never grow this business because I have too many onesie-twosies that I have to deliver on. So what do I do? Rock and hard place scenario. The next one is data, right? And so we touched on this briefly yesterday, but the speed of the business is going to be based on the speed of the quality of the data, right? If you have higher quality data, if you literally knew what all the data in your business was at the snap of fingers, you'd be able to make a lot of decisions really quickly, and you'd be able to move with a lot of certainty and conviction. And I think everyone here has probably had some decisions where you're kind of like, you weren't super sure on, and because you weren't super sure on it, you kind of like slow dragged your feet. And the result of that is not only did you not execute it well, it also took forever. Whereas when you're like, oh, this is crystal clear, I know what we need to do, you can get something done in a weekend. And the thing is that if you have that level of certainty, then that weekend can happen every 2 days, and you can take what takes some businesses a year and do it in 3 or 4 weeks. Now, the difficulty thing here is I need this data to make this decision, but it's going to cost me effort and time to get this data. And if I put that effort and time into getting this data, I'm going to lose money. The next one, this is what I call the best seller of this list.
is focus, right? It's the one that I probably talk about most often, and I think it's because it's probably, at least for me, it's been the one that I've struggled the most with, and it's also the most prevalent. Because the thing is that the more able you become, the more opportunities you can see. And so in the beginning, you have to you struggle to say yes because you're so afraid, right? That's everyone starts. Everyone's afraid to say yes. What if I fail, et cetera, et cetera. You're here, so you've already gone past that. And so you got rewarded for saying yes in the beginning. And so then it just becomes this muscle that you flex more and more and more. But in the beginning, you have to say lots of yeses or start saying yes because you're in kind of exploration mode. You're trying to figure it out. Once you start to get good, though, you have to flip that and it becomes exploitation mode, which is how to get as much as I possibly can of the thing that I currently have. And so to be really crude here, so I apologize to the women in the room, like it only works one way, but you can understand it. Like you can't sleep with every woman. It's not going to happen. And it doesn't work. And so you have to choose. Like if you take the hypothetical extreme, you can't do it all. And so then you just work your way backwards until eventually you're like, okay, if I just did one thing for 45 years, do I think I'd win? Probably. No, but being real, like the guy who lives, like he's my neighbor, is the guy who owns Panda Express, right? Andrew Churn. And so he has sold chicken in a brick and mortar establishment for 45 years. Last year, he took home $935 million in personal income, and he offset all of that against his real estate, tax-free. He did $3.7 billion top line in sales, 27% net margins in the business, owns the whole thing, 45 years. And so the thing is like a lot of the conversations that we'll go over, people obsess about, am I in the right vehicle? But the thing that is by far the bigger predictor is how long you've been in the vehicle and that you've improved. And so you can't just be in the same vehicle for the whole time. Obviously, like you could just have one restaurant for 45 years too. But the idea is that you get better, right? But the focus is what allows the compounding to occur. And you never unlock the compounding when you're continuing to switch tasks and switch priorities. And I'll tell you that one of the big reasons that I think many of you are struggling with this focus is because your mission is only to make more money. Because the thing is if making more money is the goal, you can't optimize anything against that. Because lots of things make money. It doesn't mean it's the right call. Overexpansion. Okay. So this is the classic. And what's really interesting about overexpansion is that it's actually shorthand for under-talented. And that's a combination of you, just being real, and or your team. And so when you have your one location that's working, then you say, okay, I'm going to open up, my second location. A lot of times people get ahead of their skis. They only have one location that's good. I'm not in the business anymore. I'm on the business, but they're still working 16 hours a day and they only have one location. So when you leave and start having to work 16 hours a day in the other location, you can't do 32 hours. So what you're doing over here, it's funny because it's like, oh, I'm not on the floor doing whatever it is that you do at your shop. And so you think, oh, because I'm not fixing cars, because I'm not cracking backs, because I'm not doing dental work, I own the business. It's like, no, you're CEO. You don't really own it yet. You still are employed by the business. And the business needs, like every one of these businesses needs a CEO. And if it's going to be you and both, then both are going to suffer. And so then what happens is you open the second location and then your profit over here, which was your cash cow, goes down. And this one doesn't really get as high as the first one did because you were there for 5 years before you did your second one. And now you're here and now you have twice the liability, but you're actually making the same money or less. And you're like, how the hell did this happen? But you're like, what the solution is? I should open a third because then this is clearly the model. But then you open the third and then it does this, right? And I know that some of you are in that boat right now. And the thing is there's nothing wrong with expanding. It's just expanding too fast relative to the IQ per square foot. Seriously, you just dilute it. So you have to increase IQ in order to increase the square footage to maintain the ratio. The next one is compensation. One of the most common mistakes that I would say business owners under 10 million a year make is that you're wildly miscompensating people all over the business. One, there's huge savings to accrue, but also sometimes the thing that's limiting your expansion is that you're under-talented, and you're under-talented because you don't pay well enough. And so it's like, if I have like another HVAC company who comes to me and says, I can't find technicians. And I'm like, well, how much do you pay? And they're like, we pay market. And I'm like, no shit, go above the market. But that's more than we pay everybody else. And you're still profitable. But we wouldn't be profitable if we raise your prices. But I can't because I'll lose customers. You just told me that you can't even take the business that you've got coming in the door. Pick. So compensation. Now I'll give you an example. I had a physical therapy studio that came and, lady said, I have we're super booked, but we're not really profitable, but we're to full capacity and everyone loves us. And I was like, okay, huh? She's like, well, I give 50% of all revenue to my therapists. I was like, okay, do they like go market and sell and you basically just like give them just the area to crack backs or whatever it is that you do? He's like, oh no, we do the marketing and the sales and we do all the admin and everything. They just show up for the times that they crack backs. I was like, yeah, 50% of revenue. Now you're working on 50. Just now you have rent, you've got payroll for everything else, you've got marketing. It's like, yeah, no shit, you're not making any money, right? And so the issue there was that was a structural issue. She could not out earn that because even if she raised her prices, the compensation will go with it. And so compensating one either too low or too high or incorrectly, all three of those scenarios. And the reason it's a rock and hard place is that, well, what if I change my comp? I'll lose all my people. But if I don't change my comp, I'll lose my business. Rock and hard place. The next is underpriced. So that's just the classic, actually the example I just gave, like we're at full capacity and we're not making money. And let's assume that we weren't giving away 50% top line to, something that was fixed. It's like, okay, raise the price. But if I raise my price, I'll lose my customers. But if you don't raise your price, you won't make money, which you already aren't making, right? So being underpriced is one of them. And then finally, single product. So I say these as like, these are say some of the biggest common themes that I see. Single product being a guy who had a YouTube channel who sold how to speak English. That was his niche or whatever for Latin Americans. And he had done basically his sales were flat, but his margins were shrinking. And the main reason, and he was selling, I think like 800 customers a month digitally. So between $20 and $800 of like language products. And he came and said, hey, I want to start a digital marketing agency because it'll be less competitive. I fought this guy for an hour. I'm not even shitting you. I fought him for an hour to try and like nail through his head. And he said this, and it was wild to me because I was like, what if we just like called those customers and sold them something else? He's like, no one's going to pay more than $800 for language services. And I was like, who here would pay more when you live in Latin America to be able to have access to the US job market? Right. Of course you fucking would. Of course you would. And so he just had this belief that literally was like, instead of just like challenging this belief, I believe this so hardcore that I'm willing to break this business that makes me $1 million a year from my organic YouTube channel and then try and get into what I believe is less competitive. And as silly as what that example sounds like, the amount of business owners that I see here who are also dealing with this, which is, it's a lot. And the reason that sounded silly is because maybe some of you have enough experience with social media marketing agencies to know that there's a dime a dozen of those. And so it's incredibly competitive because the bar to enter is zero. It's an internet connection and an iPhone, right? And so anyways, I say all that to say, when you have this idea of like, oh, I want to try this other thing, you also sound like that guy. You just don't know what you don't know yet, because no business is easy. You just don't know enough about it to know what's hard about it. And like, I would say that last year was the first year, and this is continuing to this year, in my whole career where I didn't experience FOMO. And I only realized it when I was like, I haven't had FOMO. This is weird. What's that like? And I remember because a buddy of mine did 50 million in personal income last quarter. It was Q4, so 2 quarters ago, just trading from his laptop, trading crypto shit. And he told me, and I honestly was just like, dude, good for you, man. Like, I had zero. Old me would have been like, dude, how do I get on this? Like, what is he doing? And I'm like, turning on the computer, because this is how you turn computers on. And I was like, okay, so it's a candlestick monitor. Like, okay, so Ethereum is back. Like, like trying to figure this. Like, I have no idea, right? That's not my hat. And to the same degree, he can't do what I do. And so it's just like, basically, the longer you play the game, the narrower you're going to get, because you're going to get better at what you do. And the amount of time it took you to get where you're at now, it'll take that long to do something else. You just don't know enough about it. And that's why it looks so good. Now, if somebody were to come to you and say, hey, you're making money, for everybody here who's making money, if somebody came to you and said, hey, you make money doing your thing, I should do that. Many of you would be like, no, you don't want to do this. You think you want to do this. You don't want to do this, right? Because you know where all the bodies are buried. And the thing is that there are always bodies, and they are always buried, and then they reach out of the ground and then just drag your soul with them. And you can only find out once you lie in that grave. We're really making this visual. But yeah, with that being said, these are the big 7. Some of you guys are experiencing one or more of these, multiple weight class champions of growth sins. But with that, let's kick off the Q&A and rock and roll. Now, I know you're doing 2.4 million. You saw outcomes to athletes, and the biggest problem that you think is stopping your growth, you'd like to get to 3 million, is that you feel like you need to reposition your offer in some way. Shoot.
Yeah, nailed it, man. So we have 3 revenue streams inside of our health clubs, our fitness centers, right? So we run ads for group. That's our highest margin. But then if a deconditioned person walks in, we can get them into one-on-one, then get them back into the group setting. And then when someone does 12 months, 13 months,
What square footage?
6,000 to 8,000 square foot, we have 4 locations.
Okay.
So then when people inevitably want to kind of take breaks or
Large group or semis?
so we do large, we're in no man's land. So we're like 16 to 20. Yeah. So, yeah, so that's a book reference. So basically what's happening though is that because we have the 24/7 open gym, which is supposed to be just a way to keep people engaged, and once they want program again, they re-engage with our coaches. Our sales team is kind of using that as lowest hanging fruit. So we're
The downside I mentioned yesterday.
right, correct. And so the challenge is twofold, right? So the first one is like, how do we market in a way that we get people to understand it's an ecosystem? We're not an F45, and all those models are good.
They're never going to understand that's an ecosystem.
Okay, so very good, easy enough. And then, and then the second,
How do I get them to know everything about me so they can understand the nuance of how we built this business model? They're not. They're going to be like, oh, it's a 6-week weight loss thing. Sounds good.
Yeah.
And then you explain that when they come in.
did you ask me how I explain that?
No, I'm saying you market the thing they want. And then when they come in, you give them the thing that they need. Don't try and explain the thing that they need before you give them the thing they want.
Got it. Okay, very good.
Okay.
Simple enough. And then I do have a follow-up real quick too, if I can push my luck here a little bit. So when it comes to leveraging my personal story, right? So when it comes to transformation stuff, I was indicted at 22 years old, did 63 months in federal prison. So when we talk about like transformation, like I'm literally said, the city that saw me at my worst is going to see me at my best. How much of that should I leverage? Because I've never really led with that. But I know now that I'm literally in the inspiration game. I'm literally in the lead gen and the sales game. And I feel like there could be some stickiness to it.
What do you want to do?
Man, I just want to,
Do you want to sell the business? Do you want to own it long term? Like, what do you want to do?
man, that varies day to day. I mean, I want to sell it, man. Yeah. I mean, eventually I want to build something that's got value and then
Okay.
I exit.
Well, then, I mean, you already have a business that doesn't require a personal brand. I wouldn't tack one on.
Very good. Fair enough. Easy enough. Fantastic. Thank you, sir.
Hey, Alex, thanks for everything you've done, and Layla as well, obviously. My name is Piers. We do 1.4 million revenue, and we'd like to be at 5 million in 3 years. We actually coach online golf, so it's online programs
So you sell X to golf to whom?
to consumers, so to the average golfer.
Okay, average people, normal people. All right.
Yeah, normal people. So we're looking to so what's stopping us from doing that? We had some ideas before we got here. We have some new ideas now that we are here. Data, huge problem for us. Focus is an issue. The way that we make our money is through the online subscription, which is great. It's our passion. It's what we like doing, but we're doing a bad job of that at the moment. We also have, which is nice, because of our social media presence, though, we've got brands that are willing to spend quite a lot of money with us. So that part of the business does really well. That's kind of holding up the
media side.
business. The media side is holding up the business at the moment for sure.
Okay.
And then, so we can generate lots of traffic and get lots of people, but we're not very good at.
Do you have multiple personalities? Not you, but multiple faces inside the business that do
So there's
their-
two of us. There's two main ones.
Okay,
Yeah.
got it.
Two main coaches, myself and Andy, who's over there.
Okay, heard. Okay. So why don't you pick one of the businesses? So you say you're passionate about the membership thing?
Yes, I think that the thing for us is what we want to be able to do is we want to be able to do this business for a long time, but then potentially sell it at the end.
Okay.
So it's kind of like, this is the thing that we love doing. We love coaching. We love changing lives.
The media business is for sure more sellable than the other thing.
Mhm.
The only, because I'll explain why. So the thing that's going to matter, like the 3 big things. Like if I had to simplify the long list that you guys have in front of you, well, it is a pretty simplified list, but like you have really good gross margins, it's growing fast, and you have revenue stick. Right? If all 3 of those things are true, then obviously you have key man risk and things like that would go with the business. But like if you had those 3 things, the business itself, the model is very strong. I can promise you that your media people, the people who are buying ad space for you, will be stickier than the consumers who are buying golf community stuff. And the margins on media are virtually 100%. Now, the digital community is also virtually 100%. So they're kind of a wash there on gross margin. And then you just have growth rate. Now, one of the beautiful things that I love the most about media business is very unique to media, which is that the way that you advertise is also the way you deliver. So you just have to do one thing, which is get attention. And then you sell the attention, then you just get more attention. And then people find out about your business because you got attention, and then you get more attention. And so if you're passionate about the community thing, which is making content for golfers, right? Why don't you just make more of that content and just make it free and let you get more attention?
So that's what we do. So we have obviously for
Yeah.
for all our brands that we cover, it's just literally us doing the coaching online, but then it's just the higher level of coaching, I suppose.
Oh, just like higher ticket?
Yeah.
And that's what's making you less money?
Yeah.
How?
Well, again, data and focus is our main things that we're looking at.
Yeah. Well, how many people work for you?
10.
Jesus. Seems so odd. It's like 1.4 million, you got 10 employees. It's a little bit high, right? Are there a lot of VAs?
So what happened was after COVID, like 2021, 22,
Yeah.
we actually grew to 2.6.
Okay.
But then as a result of growing the team, scaling the team, and thinking that we were picking the right people and we didn't really know how to do it, I think we have struggled since.
So how'd you go from 2.6 to 1.4?
And that's mainly well, the brand revenue has gone up and the subscription revenue has dropped.
Why can't we just do more of this brand revenue? You're like, I've got this thing that I'm not trying to grow that's growing, that's super valuable, and it's a high gross margin. There's the other thing that's really hard that I haven't done really well, and it's shrinking. How do I grow that one?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I think there's probably like a natural, like, we know that in our mind, the best product is the membership because that's where they really get the best of us. And we feel like that's what's going to take it to 50 million. Whereas the brand stuff is going to be holding us back.
Think about the amount of, like, how many $50 million golf coaching businesses do you know of?
No one.
Right. How many media businesses? I'll tell you, more than that.
Yeah.
And golf is an awesome niche. Huge spenders. It's one of the few things men spend money on.
Yeah.
No, seriously, it's making more money. Cars, watches, below the belt, above the belt, right? And then and then you've got like golf and shooting, and then like prepper stuff. That's guys. That's it. But we earn a disproportionate amount of money.
Yeah.
And so like you are one of the outlets that men spend money on a consumer in a big way.
Yeah, helpful. Thank you.
To make you feel better, just for everybody, I'm not really talking to you. I'm talking through to everybody else. So there's this great Yiddish saying that I say all the time, and I really like it, which is, your nose is an inch above your mouth, but it takes somebody else to tell you your breath smells bad. And so sometimes one of the biggest benefits that we have with the portfolio companies, like all the portfolio companies, like they're good CEOs, like they're smart dudes and dudettes, and like they're intelligent people. It's just like, that's what outside eyes can do. It's just like, oh, really growing thing that has high margins and high enterprise value, thing that we're struggling with and not paying attention to that we think is more valuable and isn't, and going down and is less scalable.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
My name is Brian Hopkins. So we sell micro development housing to investors.
Micro development. Okay.
Yeah. So infill housing. We do 46 million in revenue.
Amazing.
We'd like to get to 500 million.
Cool.
If possible. And our bottleneck is scaling capital and our team structure. So they rely heavily on myself and my business partner.
To do the fundraising?
No, to do everything, basically. Yes. Fundraising is what we'd like to focus on.
Heard. Okay. And so
the question is, how do we get Sharon to join us as a GP in our fund?
Yeah. Sharon's sneaking. Yeah.
But our question would be how do we attract high net worth individuals without using our personal network?
Just talk to me. I mean, you have a number of paths, right? One is somebody go to somebody who already has all those people, right? Option one, that's the affiliate model. You could run paid ads and say, hey, this is my experience, this is my background. If you're an accredited investor, check this out. Or you could be making content, which I don't know if you are doing that on a regular basis. You could be making content, or you could do the outbound method. But like those are fun. Like those are the options, right? There's only so many ways to get have people find out about your stuff. I mean, that's it. Like going to trade shows, I still kind of put into like you pay somebody else to gain access to their audience. Same idea. But those are the different paths. We have a really good kind of like playbook for because what you're looking for is kind of like high. It works the same as an enterprise sale, even though it feels different or like it quacks different. It's actually still the same process. And I think that if I had no money, no everything, and I had to start now and I was switching places with you, I would probably hit the conference event stuff because that's where it's just super high leverage. You typically want to be face-to-face with investors. You don't want to, but you can. And it's just like the speed to trust is so much faster. Yeah, we have a whole playbook around that, but you should more than I can share right now in terms of time for everybody else. But I think if I had to pick one of those paths, that's probably the one I would start with. Unless you had some like background in like media buying or some other, yeah, that's what I would do. Yeah.
My name is Ashley Brock, and I sell advertising training to business owners, so all paid ads. we'll do 5 or 6 million. I'm optimistic. So we're going to go with 6 because it sounds better.
I like 5 or 6. Okay.
Okay. Yeah. I would like to be at 50 million. Obviously not this year. What's stopping me is my capacity for sure. And so my question is, after hearing today that you spend 80% of your time on content, I'm trying to figure out what are the only things that I should do for me, and then what should I delegate? I don't have anybody that I pay more than 100,000. So that's one thing I feel like I'm missing.
What are your
out on.
margins?
My EBITDA, I know,
Yeah, sure.
at 2.5.
On 5?
Mhm.
That's great. That's
Yeah.
amazing. Yeah, it's super good.
I was excited yesterday.
That was the best reaction. So I want to answer your question with a perspective shift. So you're now getting to the point where you have enough money where you have to start thinking about return on capital, right? Return on invested capital within a business. And so if you have $2.5 million, right, you can think of that as like, okay, well, if I take that out of the business, which you would, because I'm sure it's an LLC or whatever, right? So it's like, okay, so I've got, call it 1.5 million after taxes that I can put in my pocket, which there's nothing wrong with that. I'm a big fan of putting money into pockets. The other way of thinking about it though is like, okay, well, what if I were to take 200,000 of that, and I take my taxable from 2.5 to 2.3, and then that $200,000 person, it makes me an extra $1 million. And so that's where I think I still believe that the biggest arbitrage opportunities that exist right now in business are still in talent. And I can tell you right now, I'll tell you a story because I think it'll drive it home. I'm talking through you to everybody else. So the moment, like the best talent, one of my favorite people on earth, see here, Sharon here, one of my favorite people on earth, said this to me, and I've always remembered it since he said, your best talent is always in the future. So right now, think about the people who used to work for you, like 5 years ago. Can you think about that team right now? Could that team run your business right now? They would die, right? And you would die too. And so the thing is that there's 5 years ahead of you looking back today on your team who feels the exact same way. And so my goal is, how do we shrink that gap as fast as we possibly can so that we can pay down your talent debt? Because right now, that's what your debt is. So basically, you're choosing to make more money, but you're paying, by making more money, you're increasing your debt for humans. And so businesses can incur lots of different types of debt. And whenever you start a business, you always incur debt. The question is which type of debt you want to incur. You can incur financial debt, you borrow money and then you start the business. But maybe if you borrow money, you can hire people that you otherwise couldn't hire. And so you don't incur as much talent debt or as much management debt. You might incur technical debt. Okay, I don't have a CRM, I don't have data, some of the constraints we talked about earlier, right? Like that might be some of the debt. And so there's different types of debt that you can incur. You have talent debt. And so the goal would be, especially because you're in a service-based business, your business will be capped for sure by the culture that you keep, which is going to be on you, and the people that proliferate that culture is the people you attract. And so if you want to grow this business, which is all based on service, it's all based on people. And so you have to bring people that you're got to be, like, if you're not paying more than $100,000 a year, it's 100% you who's making this happen, which is kudos to you for being skilled. On the flip side though, it doesn't have to be that way. And you would be amazed at the talent that you can get when you crack, like you might want to just jump to 250,000 a year and you'll be like, oh my God, these people are so much better. And what's scary is when you pay someone 500,000 a year, you're like, oh my God, this is a totally different level of talent. And then you pay someone $1 million a year, and you're like, holy shit, I didn't know people could, they made people like this, right? And then eventually you get people, you know, like Sharon, and you're like, he's just better than I am, you know? And maybe someday I'll convince Sharon, right? And so the point is like, you just want to find people who are absolutely unreal. And the litmus test that I have is that you feel this like desperation in your core when you talk to them. You're like, I have to have this person. It's not like, oh, I have this role. This person seems like a pulse and not a moron. I guess this is the least bad of the 10 people I've talked to. I would encourage you, if you're ever in that situation, this is the least bad, just don't, just keep looking. Like we will keep a role open for weeks or months if we do not find the person. And so we are always actively recruiting, and we have a lot of flow. And so you guys got to meet the team this morning, so you have a little bit more context. Smart people, very good at what they do. But in order to do that, like those people do not cost $250,000 a year. They're significantly more than that.
Yeah. I've told myself up until now that I'm saving money by paying less. And you're right. It's like costing so much more.
Yeah. You're always paying. It's just what you're paying. You pay with the thing you care the least about.
So good. Thank you.
Yeah, you bet.
Andrew LeBaron. I convert motels, hotels to apartments, extended stays across the Sunbelt states. On track for 14 million revenue this year. small EBITDA, 2.1 net, real estate, high OPEX. Would like to be at around a 30 million.
Do you have LPs or you fund it all?
Yeah, we have a Reg D 506 fund. We partnered with a key man who's now kind of key man risk, good friend of mine, Richard Wilson of Family Office Club. What I want to do next is create a hotel brand.
Okay.
Specifically on the adaptive reuse side.
Okay.
Because you have all these empty, garbage, crappy hotels, motels, and they don't want to pay the pips that Marriott, Hyatt, Radisson want them to pay. So I can come in and say, look, I'll take over. I'll take care of all your operations. Don't worry. I figured all that out. I'm on my umpteenth property.
Sure.
Here's what I just need you to do. The issue with that is I'm battling a lot of other buyers, and it's hard to get in. It's hard to be the first guy that sees the deal, right? The gatekeeper of these properties are brokers, agents. So that's what's stopping me. I believe I know what I need to do, but I need a little bit more validation, get over my analysis paralysis. But I believe I need to be that thought leader in this space. And my thought is, if I am the thought leader in this space, they'll kind of come to me. You know, before the key man was raising all the capital. Well, now I'm raising all the capital.
Okay. When you say they'll come to me, who?
Those who have hotels, motels that want to
Okay.
convert them into apartments where I can buy
So not
equity.
the investor side, but the
The actual, yeah, I need a
the deal side.
pipeline.
Okay.
Correct. I need a pipeline.
Okay.
Pipeline problems all day long for me.
Okay.
So I feel if I have a channel or some sort of content distribution, and it's a blue ocean strategy. In fact, there's only one other guy in here that's actually doing something similar to me. I don't know where he's at, but I just spoke to him. There he is.
There
And
you go.
You're on his podcast. So that's what I believe, and I kind of want that validation.
Well, I'll zoom out for a second before giving the immediate like cool, which is the problem that we're solving is just deal flow, right? And so kind of like I was saying earlier, like thought leadership is a path. It doesn't have to be the path. If it's the path that you want, cool. But when I think about this, I think about basically what is the highest reward, lowest risk way of accomplishing whatever the problem is, right? And so for you, if I'm picking for anybody, it's like, what is your existing skill set and what has the highest overlap with that skill set so that I have the highest likelihood it's going to work. So if you were like, you know what, I've done face-to-face forever. That's why it's like, oh, you know what, let's do the conference strategy as a good strategy for the fundraising. If you're like, I understand media, I like social media, I want this like deep inside my heart, then I'd be like, well, I'm not gonna stop anyways. We're gonna do that anyways. So go do the quote thought leadership and make content. If you had if Ashley was here and she was like, you know what, I know how to run ads for you, then like if that was your background, they'd be like, well, let's just run the paid side. So like you could absolutely run an ad that just says, hey, if you're a motel owner and you're looking to sell, I'd love to talk to you, and you can just generate leads that way. It works fine. Like I wanted to do a deal in the payment processing space like a year and plus ago. Maybe some guys saw this, but like I ran ads just for like, hey, payment processors doing between 30 and 300 million a year. Like hit me up if you're like interested or whatever. And I think we had 13 qualified companies for $6,000 in spend, like on the phone, which is absurd, right? If you think about it from a deal flow perspective. And so I only say that this is going to be worth explaining. We have our, big prize, and let's assume that it's money for the sake of this conversation. There's going to be, this way, and then there's going to be this way, and then there's going to be this way. All of them get up the mountain. And so I think where the quote analysis paralysis kicks in is that you're like, which one is best? And I call it the fallacy of the perfect pick, is that you think that there's a perfect pick and there just isn't one. There's trade-offs on all of them. Like you're going to be in where you get in trouble is where there's two big places you get in trouble. One is here at the base of the mountain, trying to figure out which one to do. And then you spend a year there, when a year on any of them, on the low side, you could have been here, on a year here versus a year here. You could have been up the mountain further than you are here just because you waited. And the thing is that the longer you wait, at some point, you would have literally got to the top of the mountain on any of them. But the waiting was the cost. The second part where you get in trouble is here or here, where you're like, you know what? This other path, kind of looks a little bit different than this one. And it looks like that one also goes up the mountain. And that one looks less steep. So then you go over here, but you're like, shit, this one's less steep, but it's slower. Or you're on the other one that's slower and you're like, but this one's more steep. And then you get there, you're like, shit, this is way steeper. And so there's always trade-offs that happen in any of these paths. But if you want to be a thought leader, just recognize that it's going to take time. Like, I would say give yourself 18 months before you determine whether or not this is a good idea. and you have to commit to that. Like when I started YouTube, the vendor that I had, he made a video about it. The first call I had, I said, I'll do this for 10 years. And if after 10 years it's not working, I'll stop. And he was like, in my entire history, I have never heard anyone say that. He's like, it's all like, how do I get leads in 90 days? And so the fact that you're in a business that is capital aggregation and you're like, you probably do have a longer time horizon anyways, just on the nature of the business. But I would encourage you to, if you are going to do the quote thought leadership thing, stick to what you know. Don't try and be the next Gary Vee or the next me or the next whatever. Because like, you're not going to beat me at being me, but you will beat me at being you. And so I would just like only talk about the things that you have the track record for. And that will necessarily narrow the content that you talk about. But the thing is that social media, you've probably heard this, has shifted to probably interest-based media now with interest graphs with the algorithm. And so if you want those types of leads, you have to make that type of content. And the thing is the algorithms are getting so good. Like if you look at my Discover page, it's just metal fabricators and I was going to say gym equipment, so it's gym equipment too, and comedy. Those are like, that's what I consume. I consume gym shit, gym equipment, and I consume comedy. That's my whole thing. And the thing is that metal fabricators are notoriously bad advertisers. And so on my Discover page are like 13 like videos of metal fab guys being like, look at this cable accessory I just welded. I'm like, this is cool. It gets served to me because I'm that audience, and I'm a great lead to have for that stuff. But like, just don't be afraid. If you see you have like 100 views, I see tons of videos that have 100 views, 200 views, 500 views, and I'm exactly who they want watching. And so if that guy, that metal fab shop guy was like, you know what? 6 things about marriage. I'm like, I don't fucking care. Like, why do I care? Why am I listening to this guy? Right? I just want to buy metal stuff. So just show me the metal stuff. And so I would just say, like, if you are going to do the motel thought leadership stuff, stick to that.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
My name is Sherry Saltaformaggio, and I am the CEO for St. Charles Surgical Hospital and the Center for Restorative Breast Surgery, which is the professional side of the practice. And we have a physician in a hospital licensed, 39 beds. What we do is breast reconstruction for cancer patients, and we also do genetic testing, and we do prophylactic. 50 to 60% of our patients come from out of state, not the country, because we're the only ones in the United States that can provide every type of reconstruction there is. So our revenue right now is about $57 million. Our goal is to grow at least 20% of new patients per month.
Okay. Per month?
On first stages and then on second stages. There's 2 parts to the procedure. We meet the goal. We meet the goal all the time for second stages.
So you want to 4X this year? I just want to make sure I understand the question here. So you're saying you're growing by 20% a month, or what?
That's our goal, is to go 20% per month. On the second stages, we are. On the first stages, we're basically flat. We're keeping our same number. We want 20% new patients per month.
Okay.
On first stages.
Okay. So your second stage is growing.
Second stages, we have no problem. We're growing. We're absolutely growing.
So can people go directly into the second stage?
They have the first stage procedure, and then they can have the second stage within 12 months.
The second stage reconstruction?
The second part of the reconstruction, where they do the tweaking, the liposuction, and so forth.
So it's like kind of plastics aesthetics a little bit.
Well, it's all
covered by insurance,
driven,
sure,
and it is. It's not something that women want, but they have.
Sure,
So of course we do the whole 9 yards to make them feel good, look good as they were before.
But the second stage, you have no problem.
The second stages we're not having a problem with. We're getting those in right away.
And they go straight in from other people who did they did stage 1 somewhere else.
I'll be honest, a lot of second stages too come in from people that were botched from other surgeons.
Got it. Okay.
So
you have 2 separate front ends to the business?
Right.
So I'm going to draw this because I just want to clarify it. So you have 2 front ends to the business. You've got in on stage 1, and then you've got in on stage 2, and then some people go from stage 1 to stage 2.
Right, they go from one.
So you've got lots of people, an unlimited amount of customers who are going straight to there, and then this is just flat in terms of growth. Okay. Is there a problem with this just growing like crazy and this not growing? Just out of curiosity.
Well, stage 2 grows. We do accommodate everyone. We own a hospital, so if we have to work on the weekends, we keep the hospital rolling. We have 7 huge OR rooms. We keep them going
What's the
constantly.
problem that this solves? Why is this a problem?
Yeah, our problem is that we want the first stages, which is the biggest money generating for our patients. In December of last year, in 2 weeks, we did 120 second stages in 2 weeks. The thing that is stopping us right now in the practice is that we're getting patients. We got 700
Okay.
and something leads in 1 month. We're getting the education calls. We're doing that. Where it becomes a bottleneck is that the insurance company. We're only in network with 2 insurance companies. We're out of network. So that's where it becomes a problem.
So do you have a lead gen issue or do you have an admin back end issue?
Well, we have a back end issue, meaning they come in, we educate, all that goes fine. Once they get their benefits and they realize what the out of pocket is, we try to help them. We give them grants and we do financial aid forms, but it's still with the insurance companies, it's still a lot of money coming out of their pocket. The caveat to this is that we did open up an office in the Dallas area. One of our physicians moved to Dallas.
What can I help you with?
What I need you to help me with is to figure out how I can, on the back end, we think we need a closer. How do we close the deal? To actually sit with all these patients that are having issues because they have no out-of-network benefits or the money is too much out of pocket.
So I'll one up you.
We need, and that is something that we're trying to look at. Is it something, do we hire a salesperson because they can sell?
I have an idea.
Or do we hire someone who is in healthcare that can also be trained to sell?
Couple things. So first off, I'll one up you, which is that you're thinking about this as a who, when I think this is actually, so you've got some things that are people solutions and other things are process solutions, right? And so you have a process solution. You need a sales motion. So it's the entire thing, because if you have a properly designed sales motion, the front desk girl could do it. I know, because I designed these for businesses. Like, you absolutely can. And so what that'll do is it'll actually make it much more scalable, because it'll decrease, basically a sales motion. So if we think about a sales process, which we'll talk about in a second, but if you think about a sales process as there's a certain amount of information that a customer needs to understand in order to make a purchasing decision, right? You can have somebody come in cold, and then you have a superstar closer, that's supposed to be a star, there we go, who can take them all the way cradle to grave and get the money. The less distance they have to travel, the less rare this is, or the more common this is. And so this is kind of like a ways up the mountain thing. Let's say this is your star closer, this is your healthcare worker, and maybe this is your sales process. All of these will get you up the hill. And so the question of like, which one should I do? All of them will probably work. The question is, which one is the highest likelihood of working given your existing skill set? And so you can design a sales motion. That's option 1, if that's within your skill set. Option 2 is you can hire a closer, assuming you know how to track them and what to look for. Number 3 is that you could go for the healthcare person and get them, quote, trained up, which then you would try and find somebody who has a kind of a hybrid. They have the personality type of somebody who's a closer, but chose a nurturing career, which doesn't always happen. Killers don't tend to be nurturers. Any of those would work, but I think that long-term for the business, the sales process or sales motion is the thing that should get fixed first, because it'll decrease the need for superstars to make the whole business work. And so that's how I would approach this from a strategic perspective of solving the problem for the business. And so that comes like the problem that you brought up of like, basically they're getting sticker shock, right? That's the issue. You have a conversion problem. And the thing is, this is so easy to solve. It's like, okay, so what information do they need prior to walking in? How can we pre-frame this or reframe this? And like, is there a way that I can say, hey, some people pay $20,000. If you could have your life back, would you be willing to do that if we had financing options? Now, to be clear, insurance will cover some of this. Maybe it'll cover all of it, but we like to be upfront that this could be how much it is. Even just having that step in the sales process will reframe how they perceive everything else. And if you also know, as people coming in the door, we work with plenty of healthcare companies, is like, we can qualify those leads ahead of time before they come in for the information sessions. We'd say, what insurance do you have? All this stuff, so that when they come in, we actually already know that Cindy's got Blue Cross Blue Shield or whatever she's got, right? And so we actually already have everyone pre-approved and we already know their limits. And so when they're coming in, we can say, hey, on the left side of the room, you guys are fully covered. You guys in the middle, you guys are 50-50. Y'all are fucked. And so all out of pocket, whatever. And so then you can also start catering the messaging to each of those audiences. And maybe instead of doing one information session, you do 3. And one is that way you're like, okay, these are all insurance people. I can talk to these people differently. These people, we have to pre-frame the down payment because they're gonna have to pay some out of pocket. But we can run that by collecting information prior to even doing the education. Again, all of this is just looking at what is required to sell somebody and then putting all of that front loaded so that you only have the people who are the highest likelihood candidates of doing the procedure that are going to be expending that you're going to expend resources on nurturing. Because otherwise, every single person that you spend resources to educate who does not buy, you lose money on. And so if we can triage that up front, we can save all of this extra money that we're wasting on these people. Worst case, you just say, hey, let me just refer you to 5 different people. And then you can basically kick up an affiliate program with some other people. I know the wording's different for healthcare, but like we'll start referring you patients. And when you refer other people patients, they tend to refer you patients too. You refer the ones that you can't take care of based on how you bill. And there are other places that can. And so you can start sending them that way. And then you start getting more type 1s in the door from that. So again, this is a sales motion issue. Like the short-term band-aid is we have to find a superstar, but I almost never try and think, oh, the way to solve my business problem is find a unicorn. It's like, sure, because everybody here could solve whatever business problem you have by finding a unicorn. I don't have like, where's my deal flow guy? Actually, we have 2 deal flow, both of you guys. So it's like, how do I solve that? Oh, just find a unicorn. Done. Just find somebody who just goes and gets all those things. It's like, well, of course we can do that. But then as soon as that closer walks away, you're screwed again.
Right.
So I'd rather build the process, build the motion, so that I can have anybody with a pulse still walk through 6 questions with somebody that we could even have on an iPad that even does the decision making for them. And then it says, which way would you rather prefer to pay? Does that make sense? That's how to approach it.
Thank you.
Hi, Alex. My name is Lucas. I have a portfolio company in Brazil.